Hi everybody, Megan Murphy back in Memphis.com. I'm sitting here with the beautiful Jan Shepard, who was in King Creole with Elvis and Paradise Hawaiian Style. I had the privilege to stop by and say hello to Jan in her lovely home with her husband Ray, who we'll talk to in a little while. But now we're going to talk to Jan. Jan, it's so good to see you again.
Hug. I love you.
I love you too. I haven't seen you since you were at the Fan Appreciation with Patsy Anderson. That was a great event in Memphis.
Oh, wonderful. It was just, and you know, you run up with people that you hadn't seen for a long time, which is why I love doing things like that.
Yeah. And you're still doing Western festivals
and
different things.
Yeah, a lot of them. Yeah. They're a lot of fun because the last Memphis festival we did, there was about 17 guys, you know, there.
Yeah.
I was the only lady, which I love.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But really, the fans are incredible. I mean, Clint Walker was there, Ty Harden, Bill Smith, Hugh O'Brien, just a whole bunch of people. My husband, who played Morgan Earp on the Wyatt Earp series, and me.
Cool.
Yes.
So for those out there who don't know about you, tell us a little bit how you got into acting.
I was Miss Cleanliness in the second grade, and I loved reaction. I loved, and I think we all get a little surprised when we first start out that we can say something funny and people laugh, you know, which is wonderful. But I always did the plays in high school, the junior, senior plays. When I graduated, I did summer stock in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, which is just the most beautiful place in the world. And then, of course, when I went to New York, had a cold, went to see Cheryl Crawford, who was doing, what was she doing? She was doing, can't remember which film it was. It was with Van Johnson when they did the movie and Gene Kelly. I can't remember. But anyway, I had a cold. And so it was a disaster. So I went back to my hometown. And then one summer, I asked my parents if I could come out here. We had relatives out here. And so then I went to work at iMagnons, met Amanda Blake. And she said...
And that was a department store, right?
Well, famous department store in those days. And Amanda, I was in the credit department. She wanted to get a credit thing. And then we found out we lived close together, and her mother had just moved out of her apartment. She had a lease on hers, so she said, why don't you come live with me and we'll share an apartment. And of course, knowing Amanda in those days, she was an MGM, and her friends were Roddy McDowell, Jane Powell, you know, Debbie Reynolds, Carlton Carpenter, Richard Anderson, just a whole bunch of wonderful kids. So I kind of got in that flow, you know, and then I was working, and I went for lunch, and this casting director was sitting there that I'd gone to before. And I said, you know, it's someone like you that's going to be, and be quiet, So I told this casting man, I said, you know, people like you are going to make me be a secretary the rest of my life.
Yeah.
He said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm working. He says, when do you get off? I said, 5 o'clock. He said, come to Sammy Goldwyn Studios. We have a lead in the show, Fireside Theater. So I went there, and when I went into the room, there was 6 guys in a semicircle and a chair here. And I was supposed to read, and I was supposed to find out that my mother, that I knew this man all my life, but I didn't know he was my father. And I'm telling my mother, why didn't you tell me? Well, I was so nervous, scared to death, that I started crying. And they loved it. They thought I was acting. I wasn't acting. I was scared to death. And I got the role, and that's how it all started.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It was luck.
Yeah.
You know, really, this business, when you work in this business, there's so much luck involved.
Timing.
Yeah. A lot of luck. Be quiet.
Timing.
Be quiet. I'm on television.
So tell us about some of the other roles you had before you were with Elvis.
I did Saberjet movie. I did Miss Hattie movie. See, this was the 50s.
Yeah.
We used to run from one show to another.
Yeah.
See, the major stars looked at television like you were slumming, and if you didn't do television, so they just grabbed us to do leads.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know a two shot from a master. I didn't know what they were talking about. I didn't have the clothes for a lot of things in those days. You had to wear your own clothes. So I did highway patrols. I did Lloyd Bridges shows. I did so many at Hal Roach Studios. In fact, that's where I met David Dortort,
Oh, really?
who put me up for an Emmy
Wow.
in a High Chaparral that I did.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a lovely letter from him that he wrote. He remembered. I thanked him for putting me up for an Emmy, and he wrote me a letter saying that he remembered this girl that talked to him about the future of television.
Yeah.
And that's when, long time ago, and he says, I wanted to thank you. I've always wanted to thank you for that, for listening to me. And he said, and so this putting you up for an Emmy, because you did a great job.
Wow.
And, you know, and it was just so sweet, you know.
Yeah.
And that's, I did a whole bunch of stuff. I did over 500 shows.
Wow.
Yeah, television.
Wow. So
Yeah.
how did it come to be that you were in King Creole?
Dolores Hart was a dear friend of mine. We had done a play at Paramount together. And she came down one morning, and we were rehearsing. And she said, Jan, I'm going to do this movie with Elvis Presley, and there's a great part for you in it. And I went, yeah, thanks a lot, you know. And no, she said, no, I mean it. She said, I'm going to go up and talk to Hal Wallace. And I thought, oh my God, you know. And so she said, came back down, she said, he wants to see you. So I walked in the room, and because of my husband, who's an artist and a Western artist and knows all about Remington and Charles Russell, I walked into his office and I saw a Remington that Jerry Lewis had given him. Beautiful, Frederick Remington. And I said, oh, that's a Remington. That's, my God, you have a And then he had a Charles Russell. And so I'm talking about that. And I think he was impressed that I knew a little bit of art.
Yeah.
And so he said, I'd like you to test for me. And I thought, okay, excited. Peter Baldwin was under contract to Paramount at that time. He became a famous director afterward, but he was working as an actor. And I walked into the studio, and there were 5 girls there that they were testing. And I almost turned around and walked out, truly,
Wow.
because I thought, I don't have a chance. There was Kathy O'Donnell, who was From the Time of Your Life, you know, with Frederick March, and she marries the boy who had no hands or arms or whatever. And just a bunch of girls that were much more known than I was. I wasn't known at all. And so I said to Peter, I said, I'm leaving. And he said, no, just calm down. Wait, because I know you're better than they are. Because he had done the tests with them.
Yeah.
And so I did my test, and Peter gave me a couple of hints, and which I did. And then I walked home, and I went to my bedroom, and I got on my knees, and I prayed so hard that I would get that role. And the next morning, my agent called and said, "You've got it."
Wow.
And I was so thrilled. I was really thrilled. Strangely enough, I was never an Elvis fan per se. I loved his voice. I mean, I love it to this day. But I hadn't gotten caught up in that because I was older than Elvis. I wasn't in that category.
Mm-hmm.
And but it was, I mean, he changed my life.
Yeah. What about that story you told me about when you saw his name in the Hollywood Reporter?
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you tell that story?
Yeah, I was sitting with Dan Duryea. We were doing a film with Gloria Swanson, and we were sitting waiting to go on, and I'm reading the Hollywood Reporter, and I go, do you know there's some kid in the South called Elvis Presley? I said, he'll never make it with that name. I mean, he can forget about it, right? How little I knew, how little bit I knew. But Dan Dury, and that was the day that our president was shot, John Kennedy, that very day. I'll never forget it. It was a moment that I'll never forget. But I never thought Elvis Presley. I never heard that name before.
Yeah.
Elvis. Had you ever?
No.
It's a strange kind of name.
Yeah.
But working with him was just the best. I mean, no one could teach Elvis to act because he, in his music, is telling you something in his music. And acting is just not singing, just telling something. And he was magnificent. You know, no one thought he would be great because this picture was bought for Jimmy Dean. And everyone thought, wow, you know, Elvis Presley's going to do a Jimmy Dean film, you know. And he was just fantastic.